in both South Australia and Victoria is this issue of housing, whether it's to buy housing or to rent, and the concerns, when it comes to affordable housing for people as well. I think I picked up, maybe it's from Hindmarsh Shire or a council or a mayor talking about the desperate need for more housing. Have you picked that up in your travels around the electorate?
Oh, definitely. In our part of the state, we've got an employment issue, but it's not an unemployment issue. It's actually really difficult to find skilled and experienced people to fill our jobs. We've got a shortage of the workforce, if anything else. It's really hard to attract people to our region who haven't lived here before or don't have a house, because we simply don't have the housing stock that's up to scratch. So certainly in some of our council areas, they're looking at housing a little bit differently. Particularly, I think, in some areas the councils are looking at purchasing land, offering up land, and then are seeking some government support to build housing on that. So it's not necessarily public housing that we've got a shortage, It's private housing, but it's really difficult to get the business case up for some of those expansion areas, I guess, where around Ballarat even, or around Melbourne, where we've got massive housing developments, a lot of private money going into it, but that's what our region's competing against, and we simply don't have the growth in the capital asset, and we don't have the rental returns either. So it's not that attractive, and that's where government needs to step in. They need to make sure we've got good quality housing that people are still paying, reasonable amount of rent for. We don't expect to provide anything for free, but we just need an incentive out there or an injection of money from the government in this year's budget to make sure we can get that housing up to scratch and to help make sure we can fill those critical roles, particularly in health and in council and in our private businesses as well. So it's a bit of an effort. It's a complex problem because it's something we've spoken about for a real long time, but there hasn't necessarily been a solution. But there's some really great proposals out there from a lot of our councils, and I'm really hopeful that the government will see the validity of it and provide that investment in our budget in May.
We've got a shadow portfolio of mental health we'll talk about a bit later on, but when it comes to social housing, and sometimes there is a higher proportion of people who need social housing who have a mental health issue. So is there some investment going on from the state government into public housing which potentially would free up other housing to the private market?
Yeah, through the Royal Commission into Mental Health, that identified just how, I guess, bad Victoria's public mental health system is, whether it's about accessing community mental health support, whether it's about when you get into crisis and finding an appropriate psychiatric bed where you can get the treatment that you need, or whether it's about that housing, that we need more public housing to support people to not be homeless and to, I guess, not have their health and safety put at risk. And this is a really vulnerable cohort of people who live in every single community. It doesn't differentiate between the city and the country. And, we certainly need to see a big investment when it comes to housing in that area. And as I said, it's not just a city problem. This is something that we see in the local area. I live in Horsham, and just last night I saw somebody who was clearly homeless walking with a shopping trolley with all of their worldly possessions down towards the river, trying to find a spot to camp for the night.
Oh, gee.
We know it's a problem everywhere, but I'd love to see the government put more of a priority to make sure there's not just public housing available, but there's safe communities where people can get that support that they need that's just beyond a roof over their head.